2. Okay, so it's 7:02 and I'm going to call the meeting to order, and maybe Lydia will come in a little while. But meanwhile, we do have her report anyway. So the first item, excuse me, the first item on the agenda is to make any additions or edits to the agenda and then accept it. Does anyone have any changes to make to the agenda? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we accept.
Thanks, Wendy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, are you an alternate or a regular? I never remember.
I think you made me, not you.
I
but
think it's
Commission
yeah.
made me a regular at some point.
All right. All
I
in
got a
favor,
letter.
Please raise your hand or say aye or both. Wendy, I can't see you. Are you?
Oh, I said aye. Yes.
Perfect. Motion carries. Hi, Liddy. We just got started.
What motion did I just miss?
We approved
Accept the agenda.
agenda.
Oh, okay.
No changes. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the special meeting on May 17th. Does anyone have any edits or changes to make to those minutes? And if
No.
not, again, entertain a motion.
So
I
moved.
move again.
Okay,
I'll let
so
you do it. It's yours.
I got it. You can second it.
I'll second it.
Liddy, then Wendy. All in favor? Raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our special meeting of May 31st. Does anyone have any changes to make to those minutes? And if not, I'll again entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Thank you,
I'll
Liddy.
second.
Thank you, Wendy. All in favor, please raise your hand.
All in favor?
Any are opposed? And seeing none, that motion carries. So here we are all the way at the treasurer's report already. Liddy, thanks for sending. And
I hope you all saw it. I'm flipping to it myself. So what it says is that we still have $991 that we haven't spent. And I don't know that we're going to be able to between now and July 1st, but it is there. Yeah, we just, that's really it.
Liddy, have we ever contributed to a replacement for Emily's tree, the oak that died at Town Hall?
No. I think the sighting is, Yos, you need to speak to this. I think the sighting of that tree is not good.
No, but I thought it was.
I don't know why.
no, every time this comes up, Melissa reminds us that someone planted a tree there like several times in a row, and every single time it died.
There's something
No, I
funny
thought it was
on.
going to go up at the Historical Society instead.
They did that.
They
Yeah,
did.
so the pin oak, there were 2 consecutive pin oaks that were planted there and they both did not at all thrive.
God.
I'm pretty sure that the
But-
marker still needs to be dug out of the ground and
Is there a tree at the Historical Society in her honor, though?
I do not know.
I believe that they planted one. I could be wrong, but
Mhm.
that's
don't
what
we-
I
let's-
thought
let's-
that they
let's
decided to
table
do
that.
because of this, because
Let's
it's
table-
dying.
let's Table that and bring it up at the next meeting and deal with it.
Sure.
Is that how I'm sorry, is that how the marker got there through you all, the Conservation Commission?
Yes,
Okay.
we paid for that nice brass marker.
A dog just came into the room, so I have to get. Come on, come on, come on.
I was having a Zoom meeting today, or not a Zoom meeting, a conference call today, and with that thunder and lightning, our dog was barking her head off. Hard to carry on a conversation.
So I just had one quick thing in relation to the budget. This month's budget shows the expenditures for the library program that I did. And I just wanted to share with you quickly, this is the 3rd book that we bought for the library. It's an incredibly wonderful book. It's called Iqbal and His Ingenious Idea. And reason I really like this book is that it actually takes place, a little boy in Bangladesh enters a science fair to try to use a solar cooker to help his mother from having to be over the fireplace and having the smoke. And his goal is to win the science fair so that his parents can then buy a gas stove for the season when they can't use the solar cooker. But what's so wonderful is that it's so ethnically correct, it's so much fun, and it also deals with the passive use of solar energy. So this is my copy. The library already has their own copy, but I just wanted to let you know that this book is now there.
Carol, I hate to throw a monkey wrench, but we are now declaring gas stoves a bad idea.
But
Well,
Wendy,
I
don't go
think it
there.
depends globally where it's used and how it's used and the particular environment and culture that it's in. So
Well,
you have to look at the whole picture of all
I
of it.
know, it's just a comment on how this whole world of problems is escalating as we learn more. But okay, that's all. I just wanted to
But
throw
anyway,
that monkey
what
wrench.
what he's trying to push is that everybody uses builds the passive solar cookers. You know,
Yeah.
that's what they really need to do. So anyway, this
Okay.
book is now there. So that's our third book for them.
Thank you.
I'll bet you that Carol has an amazing library of children's books.
You must.
I don't buy all of them, but this one I like so much, so I had to get myself a copy.
That's great. That's great. Anything else before we move on from the treasurer's report?
Well, we do have, if I can, yes, we have a Cougar report. We now have a total of $11,005.84 in our Cougar fund. The town records and our records are off by $200 because the town, when the chamber sent in their money reimbursing us for cleanup expenses, I don't know if it was Barbara or assistant, somebody put it in the Cougar fund instead of reimbursing.
Oh. It must have been Barbara, because I slipped that under the door.
It may
I
have been, but she has somebody that helps her with this stuff. I
Okay.
forgot her name now, but she's the one who sends me the reports these days.
Yeah,
So I've
Okay.
emailed her and asked her to take that out of Cougar and put it back into the town funds for KCC. It's sort of a little bit of a shame because, well, it doesn't really matter, but you know, if we don't use our budget, the money goes back to the town. The Cougar fund is money we can use. So in some ways, they were kind of helping us by not reimbursing the town, but reimbursing the Cougar fund. But I thought, in all honesty, it really should go back to the town.
really what we should do is late this year, we should have a conversation about what we want to do next year and what we might need money for, because we haven't spent the things that we used to spend on. And I don't really think that that is, I mean, it's neither here nor there really, but it's just that if we don't need to spend money on things like blowing up the posters at the school anymore, then we shouldn't include those in our budget. And we might want to think about whether there are other things that we would want to ask for in our budget. So,
Well,
Absolutely.
in the spirit of the Cougar Fund, if we started thinking about some other areas of tree planting, because we'd be doing it in the fall, we'd really have to start thinking about that now.
I'd love it if we could plant some more trees around town. Didn't Bruce Bennett say he wanted to help us with that?
he did.
Yeah,
Why
And-
don't we get together with him and set up some planting? I mean, we've got a good sized budget. Look around
Affordable
town. Where do we-
housing might need it, Templeton Farms might need something. But we really need to reach out now in order to be ready in the fall. So maybe a couple of people could be assigned that chore to, call.
But in
Todd,
terms of the budget, year,
No, that's
Well,
not.
we
This
have
is the
to
Cougar.
spend
No,
Fund.
now.
this is Cougar,
oh, Cougar, I'm sorry.
Right. It
When
doesn't
is-
make any difference to our budget.
No,
Okay,
yeah.
but I'm just saying $10,000 sitting in our Cougar fund, we ought to spend it. At least half of it. Get some trees planted and be nice to them.
Yeah.
and Make more
yeah,
shade.
we're kind of waiting for Bruce. We've talked with him about it and we said we're available. He was going to inventory the sites where he thought trees were
Well, I
needed.
think we need to
And
stay on
I
his
still haven't
case,
seen
you know.
that.
Yos, maybe we set up a meeting with Bruce. Would you be available someday? Wendy, you and I and Yos could talk to Bruce about trees?
Yeah, a bit later in the season, not this month.
Not, okay, not this month, but I still, as Wendy says, I'd
Yeah.
like to do it soon enough so that we can have a plan and actually
Right,
plan
right.
Mhm.
in October.
But there's no reason why somebody couldn't pick up the phone and call affordable housing in some of the other potential places.
I think
or
it's better,
even a place-
actually, Wendy, since Bruce indicated that he wanted to do this with us and he is our tree warden, to do it in conjunction with him rather than have it be, you know, messy and uncoordinated. I'd rather work in coordination with other groups in town than, you know, do something.
Okay, what we could do, Connie, then is, you know, take, Wendy, if you've got a couple of ideas, let's put them together, and when I or somebody reaches out to Bruce to set up a meeting, say, look, these are a few sites that we had in mind. Let's talk about that and whatever sites you, Bruce, have in mind.
Yeah, some places on Main Street, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, I'd love, I just wish those wires would come down, or at least there'd be fewer of them. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
Okay, can we move on from the treasurer's report?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought there was something. No, I guess that's it. Yep. No, moving on.
Okay, the next item is public comment, and the minutes will reflect that no members of the public are here this month. So that gets us down into our old business. And 7A is our, wait, I don't want to get this wrong. I called it up before the meeting. I can't print anything out. Our protection of farms and farmers from nuisance claims, proposed revised ordinance. And there has been no movement on that since May 31st.
What was the next step, Connie? It was being,
I was waiting to hear from Jean whether or not we could share it with the town council, and Jean did that today.
oh, shared today. Got it. That's an
We
update.
should, so we're awaiting comments from council.
Okay.
And of course, as soon as I hit send, I realized that he probably will need it in a in Word format. So, and I just sent that a few minutes before the meeting. So if you have the tracked changes document that you could send, and he'll add in any tracked changes, edits that he would suggest.
I can do that. Did you not get it? I didn't do
It was a
that.
PDF that I got.
Is it a PDF that has the track changes though?
Yes, it does. He just can't add to the track changes, and they prefer to work that way. To send you back further tracked changes, because in a PDF you can see them, but you can't do anything with them.
Okay.
And I apologize for not having my camera on. I was sick today, and my top knot and frizzy hair just are not camera ready. And my Yukon t-shirt.
So Jean, what's the next step then? So we get something back from the town lawyer, and then what?
And then it would go to Board of Selectmen.
We want it to go to P and Z first.
Okay,
That's how we did it last time. So
okay,
I
great.
think that it would just be fair to do it with them.
Yeah, that seems to make more logical sense. So
When is
that'd
the
be-
next P and Z meeting?
Tomorrow.
How about the
And
one?
it's a
after that?
special
They
meeting.
meet at least once a month.
Okay, so when's the July one?
I
I think it's the second.
would be like I don't know when it falls, but it's the second Thursday.
Okay, because I'm just hoping that we could get it there, back from the lawyer and back, and then returned in time for that meeting.
Yeah, but ultimately, doesn't it, Jean, have to go to a town meeting?
Correct.
In which case we should probably wait until there's a town meeting for another reason anyway.
Yeah, we have I think it's now either 5 or 6 ordinance revisions that I'm hoping in the next couple of months, we can bundle together into one town hearing and meeting process.
And Jean, does
Because
that
that's
happen?
expensive,
after-
isn't it? There's like a notice provision and all of that. It's not the same as like an election, but isn't it? Like you,
Yeah, so that process would involve the registrars of voters would have to, verify everybody at the town meeting to vote. So that would be hourly time for them. And then there is notification to newspapers and stuff like that. It's not exorbitantly expensive, but there is a cost to it, and it makes sense to bundle them together if possible. So the next P and Z meeting is July 8th, after this, obviously the June one.
So and the public comment or public meeting has to be after P and Z's meeting?
I'm sorry, I was in the wrong month.
it should be, Liddy,
Step back.
because we want to be sure that they don't have any comments or changes. And for all we know, the town attorney's going to come back with
No.
lots.
I was just trying to
changes, so.
be sure that if it goes smoothly, we could be there in time.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we want to do is have our eye on when the other ordinances are going to go to town meeting and try to bundle it in if we
Okay.
can.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it looks like, so planning and zoning is the second Thursday of the month. So next month, it would be July 13th. I was looking at the wrong month.
Okay.
That would be after our meeting.
Correct, the day after.
But it won't get there that early anyway, because the town council will come back for comments, then we have to discuss it again.
Unless
and
we want to have a
change
special
it.
meeting.
So it's gonna take a while.
I mean,
Nope.
it's okay, right? Because I think everyone is clear on why the old one was confusing. So it's unlikely that we'll have the same kind of a situation arise. And in the meantime, the old ordinance is there, still does what it's supposed to do, as long as you're not confused by it. And we'll get our revisions in to clarify as soon as we can.
Okay.
Okay. Next on the agenda is pay as you throw. Oh, sorry, save as you throw and organics recycling. And I know that there was another town meeting on that yesterday. Is that right?
Yes, we had Jen Heaton Jones did another trash talk, which she sent me the recording today, so we'll get it up on the website tomorrow. She does such a great job. It was great. There were a couple of really interesting videos talking about how recycling and garbage get processed, that I think while it was a small group that was on the meeting or on the session, we had a lot of people register, but a bunch of people didn't log on. So I think there were 11 or 12 people total. I think there was it was a very dense and a lot of information learned by those folks who attended. So I think it's going to be useful to have it on the website and, share it out.
Jean, can I make a suggestion that the next time we have something like this, that you don't just urge us to attend, but that you include the Zoom address in your urging? I could not get on board. I tried every which way. I had to go to HRRA to find out what the code was and so on, and none of it worked. But
Well, it
anyway,
should have. I don't know why it didn't work. That's strange.
well, that may be a separate thing. But anyway, why not include it in your invitation and reminder to all of us?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no way that I could go directly from your urging.
No, there
to
was no
attend.
link. There was no link.
Yeah,
But Wendy, I think that when you register, you then get the email that
You get
has
the
the
link.
link.
Correct.
And I don't think you want to just put out the link to the general public.
You
We've
can't.
had some pretty bad experiences with that.
Right, and
So-
also for part of the grant deliverables is that we have to track how many people attend these public informational sessions, and the best way to do that is to have people register. And also, when you register, Jen added in the ability for people to ask, I think, like 5 or 6 questions
Yeah,
in the
I-
registration form. And the first session that we ran, gosh, I think she had 40 questions. So a lot of questions were asked, and so she was able to build her presentation around the questions. So it was very sort of user-generated content, if you will. And again, I know she got a number of questions from the people who did register. But I believe we put the link and, visit hrra.org to register.
Jean,
Yeah,
when
I
you
did
have
it
it on the
fine in the
website,
beginning. It was
all the
just-
videos that she showed last night will also be there in the presentation?
Yes.
Great.
And then
And
meanwhile,
What
the
happens
program's-
now? Is it sign up?
the program's scheduled to start July 1st, is it not?
Yeah, so we're waiting on Deep to get us back the contract that we have to, that HRRA is basically our grant administrator fiduciary. And so the contract we and HRRA get from Deep, we obviously flow through it. Jen signs it, she sends it back to Deep. It has to go to multiple other units within Deep, and then it also has to go to the Attorney General's office for review and approval. So as you can imagine, that is a thing that takes time, and Jen turned it around very quickly, if not the same day, back to Deep. So it's still in their hands. We're just waiting to get the signed contract back, and we cannot spend a penny until we have the signed contract back from them.
It sounds
So-
unlikely that it'll be July 1st. Maybe you could prorate and start in September.
So we're ready to go as soon as Deep sends us back the contract. And Rick, Jen and I are in regular contact about how do we get this spun up as quickly as possible once we get the contract back. So if it's July 3rd, we'll likely start July 15th. We're not gonna wait any amount of time, and we're gonna continue to have these informational sessions all along the sort of pre-deployment, and then during the pilot, we're gonna continue to have these informational sessions. Jen is also hiring a project manager that is specific to I think 4 towns that received this grant money. And so that person is going to be traveling to all the transfer stations when they're open during the initial implementation process. And they're creating collateral materials and all sorts of public messaging for the program. So
But don't we have to re-up with our transfer station contracts July? It's like, doesn't that start July 1st?
Yeah,
what
so
will happen?
by
Will
the
we
end
get
of
delayed?
next week, if we don't have the contract in hand, we'll send out public messaging through the normal channels that your transfer station permit from last year is good through until we tell you there's a new program and a new permit fee, which we did. We crunched the numbers many times, and what we're proposing to the Board of Selectmen, hopefully on Friday at our special meeting, is right now it's 130 for seniors and 150 for non-seniors. We're proposing 115 for seniors and 125 for non-seniors. And then we're also going to have an organics only permit that will be $20 for the term of the pilot. So if somebody has curbside, but they want to participate and take the challenge in the organics pilot, they can do it for $20, and they'll get the countertop container, 104 of the composting bags. And if they want to purchase the larger toter, they can do that for $10. And then normal transfer station permit holders will, as part of their permit fee, the 115 and the 125, they will get that countertop composting container
And the bags?
and the bags, yep. And then
But
if you
you
want
don't
to
have to do that, right?
the additional 10, sorry.
If all my compost just goes in my backyard, I don't need to do that. I don't need to participate, do I?
No, you don't. It's
Okay.
voluntary. We're hoping, we went back and forth as far as whether or not to give everybody the orange, save as you throw bags and the composting bags. And obviously you don't have to take the composting container and, if you use your own. And what Jen has seen is if there's resistance from people, especially with the save as you throw, because that is a really big change, because every, permit holders are coming to take their garbage, and this change with the orange bags, if we give them the bags regardless, they're more likely to consider, hey, why don't I, let me just try it for a month and see what happens. I have the bags anyway, they were free. Let me just give it a try and take the challenge versus, and also we don't have to then manage the one by one of who wants the bags, who doesn't want the bags. And we have to collect so much data for the pilot. It makes sense to have make the attempt to have everyone who has a transfer station permit take the challenge for the year and take the bags and use the bags. So that's sort
So
of
there's no
some of the-
limit on the number of people you want to have signed up for this pilot. You're not going to close it after you've got 200 participants or something.
Oh, no, it's for every single permit holder
It
who
is.
uses the
So
transfer station.
are you going to have to hire an extra person at the transfer station just for this?
We're hoping not,
Uh-huh.
because we're going to be able to have the project manager, and I'll likely spend a bunch of, either Saturdays or Sundays or both days, depending on what the need is, to help educate people as well. So we are, fingers crossed, we're not going to have to hire an extra person, because we don't have that in the annual budget, which just passed.
So every customer of the transfer station is in the pilot, and it's just only so it's a reduced fee for using the transfer station, so long as you don't make more than 2 bags of garbage a week. And then for people that do, they pay extra each time.
For the people that do, you'll be able to purchase those orange bags. We're hoping we can get I'm sure Ace Hardware will carry them. We'll have them at Town Hall. We'll have them at the transfer station. So if people need extra bags, they certainly can get extra bags. But we're really hoping is that through people watching or attending these public information sessions and really being more thoughtful about what they throw in their kitchen garbage cans, that people will see that it's likely they really only need the 2 bags per week, because there's so much more going into all the other different containers around the transfer station.
And will this compost that goes to the farm be purchasable, or how do we, what becomes of that compost?
We will get back I don't know exactly how much, but they figure it out. We will get back a load of it in at some point in the spring, and it will be available to residents. I don't know the specifics of how that gets worked out, but we will find a place, and I'm sure New Milford Farms works out exactly, the tonnage based on what we contribute in, which is another incentive to, really take the challenge and sort of go all in on this.
Well, I'm very excited. I think this is wonderful.
Yeah,
Does
it's
it
funny,
actually-
especially last night and this morning, when, because Jen has really been repetitive in her messaging about, it's really about being more thoughtful when you go to throw something in your kitchen garbage can. Every time I've gone to throw something in my kitchen garbage can, I think of Jen Heaton Jones, and I think, does this really go in here, or can it go somewhere else? So I think that just repeated messaging and driving home that message of being more thoughtful will really affect a lot of people.
So Jean, I have a question. Does it help the town economically to have more compost come in? Like, when you say that you're taking, that people can buy a permit for compost only, do you want people to be composting it? Or is that, like, is there any advantage to the town to collecting more compost? Would it make a difference if I collected mine as opposed to putting it in my backyard, or conversely gave it to somebody else, because it would bring compost, it would bring organics into the transfer station?
That's a really good question. We added that permit level because the feedback that we were getting from curbside users was that my curbside my curbside hauler doesn't offer, an organics program, and could we just bring our organics, continue being curbside? I don't know. Everything is covered for the pilot, so it'll be interesting to see how many of those $20 permits we sell, because that will then represent, because they have an average, because based on the bag size, they have an average weight of each bag for composting and for the Save As You Throw. So we will be able to collect data on all three of the, the organics only, and then the everyone else, because we'll have the organics only permit purchases. So I'm not sure, to answer your question, but we will certainly be collecting data, and then we'll have to, monetize that to see how much it will cost once the pilot is over and the grant funding is no longer in place.
Does the town have to pay New Milford Farms?
It's covered in the grant.
Okay, but they get paid for this.
Oh, yes, we will contract likely with them. I don't know. So it's a two-step process. There's a hauler and then there's the processor. So we'll need to contract with the hauler. And there's only a few of them that do business on this side of the state. But yeah, it's all covered in the grant.
And you say a $20 fee for organics only. How about doing something like that for the glass also? I have my own compost pile, but I can collect glass and drop it off at the transfer station every so often. I wouldn't mind paying a $20 yearly fee to do that. You said now for people who don't have a transfer station permit, they can't bring their glass. You want to look into allowing that for other people also bring glass there, and maybe
Yeah, because this,
special
I mean, we're focusing on, this grant, and the pilot really are about the organics and Save As You Throw, but that is an interesting idea. It does start to get into a resources press, because it's another level of permit that the staff will need to ensure they're only putting materials in the glass bin, and they're not stopping and sneaking something into the MSW, as it were. And they run, as you know, really lean over there, but it is an interesting idea to try to get more of that recycling and those materials that we're source separating. And the curbside haulers, I thought we're supposed to be taking that. Goes in for curbside, I think it goes into the single stream and then gets separated out at the MRF.
Well, but even Jen said the glass that goes in single stream, that just destroys the value of a lot of the recyclables, especially when it breaks. Only the glass that gets collected centrally, like in the bottle deposits and so, gets recycled. The other glass just does damage to the recycling.
Well, I mean, because all the glass, excuse me, the glass gets crushed. And I think that's one of the first stops when it hits the MRF, the recycling facility where they separate everything out. That's one of the first things that gets separated out because it gets crushed and it's the tiniest material. But I can check back in with her on that. I thought that it was that it does get processed properly at the MRF from the curbside haulers.
All right. Well,
Wonder,
great. Excited.
I just had a thought that's late in the game, but I was imagining that if you had it like a sticker on the side of your kitchen garbage can, it basically showed that you were throwing away money every time you threw something into the garbage,
Oh, I love that.
if that would help at all.
I love that. I'm gonna share that with Jen because I know there's money in the grant budget for education materials, and that might be a fun sticker or playing or something.
Because
to
your
hand out.
garbage can in your garage is one step removed, so maybe you're
Yeah.
not thinking about it when it goes in the kitchen garbage.
Yeah,
You
And
need it
probably
in the bathroom.
not many people will think of Jen Heaton Jones when they're at their kitchen garbage can.
Every single garbage.
Stickers.
Yeah, and I am, like, you had me at stickers. I am such a giant fan of stickers.
Paper ones, though.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. So these are our updates. I think we may be able to move through them pretty quickly. C is the POCD and the P&Z regs. Is there anything that we should be talking about today on those?
Well, tomorrow the Planning and Zoning Commission has a special meeting again on the changes to the conservation development. So this time I did read the changes they made. They changed it quite a bit from what they had last time when we had that public meeting. Some things were compacted, which is good, makes it easier. There are a couple of other things, some other good changes that were made, including, well, there's also a change made to how you calculate or assign the open space. Do you include both unbuildable and buildable land, 40% or 50% of the whole parcel? It used to be that the developer could basically choose, and they would choose the unbuildable land to put to open space. And then the consultant came with a proposal to allow it only for buildable land. And that does not sit well with everybody. I understand that, and it doesn't always make sense. So now it's a hybrid proposal where the protected open space ratio between buildable and unbuildable portions should be similar to the whole parcel. it actually says now it should be the same, which wouldn't quite work, but similar, I don't know, maybe that can work, and that might be also a compromise that they both will accept. It's hard to come with a good rule, but I don't know if one of you has an idea for that. But I think it's a decent compromise.
Look, I think the P and Z really took its time, trying to figure out what it wanted to do with this. If you've listened to any of the meetings or been present for them, they did not take this lightly. They wanted to create something that was going to work. They wanted to create something that actually was going to end up being an incentive for developers to use, so that they wouldn't simply ignore it and decide to just build a plain old ordinary subdivision. So, I think that what they've come up with, at least should be easier to use, and would result in some open space being conserved if people are incentivized to use it, which is still an open question in my mind, because it's complicated and it's restrictive, and we'll have to see.
One thing that they dropped is mention of condominium development or common interest communities and of planned unit developments. That was dropped completely, and I don't know why, because that is an option that I think is very feasible. It doesn't have to be a subdivision with small individual lots. It could be something like where I live at Brookwoods, which is a condominium development that could well work for a conservation development.
That's not possible anymore under the new rules?
Well, that's been dropped completely for some reason. I had said there was no, in my comments, that there was no definition of planned unit development. And then the response was basically dropping it, which I don't quite agree with, so I'll bring that up at some point. I don't think I'll be attending the meeting tomorrow. It's just a meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. But at some point they'll have a public hearing. Another thing that was dropped, that was in the road and drainage standards. There was a separate thing of that existing farm roads, if they would serve as a subdivision road, they could be narrower and they wouldn't have to be upgraded to full scale roads. And that has been dropped out for some reason, apparently after talking with Rick Osborne. So I don't know if that's something you guys think should be kept in there to allow existing narrow roads to be used for small development, small subdivisions.
I'd be interested in Rick's reasoning for that, but I think that having the access that you need for fire and municipal services is probably something that, you wouldn't want to compromise.
What's
Yeah,
the
but it would still
definition
be
of
18
small?
feet wide. And so,
But I
How
don't really
small
see
is-
that as being a conservation issue anyway. I mean, this to me is more of a development and municipal development
yeah.
issue.
okay.
Unless I mean, are you thinking, Yost, that we ought to be watching out for existing farm roads? But I mean, there's
Well,
no
I mean, if it's
restriction of farm roads, right? It's, there's still.
I don't know of any particular example, but if there's a nice old narrow road that would have to be upgraded when there's a subdivision, small subdivision taking place, we might find, well, is that really needed to widen that?
To how wide?
But
Right,
Yes.
but that's internal to the subdivision anyway, right? I mean, these are not like, they're never gonna be the scenic roads, they're never gonna be the country roads that get you from one place to another, the roads within the development.
Yeah, but existing roads. If an existing.
Right, but they'll either be appropriate to what's being developed or they won't be. But nobody's gonna drive on them anymore, except the people that live in the development anyway. Like, I don't know.
Well, and that's why.
I don't really see it.
That's why I wonder why should you change that road in the first place? I mean, if it's usable and you only add 4 lots, why should you change that road or upgrade that road? But it was allowed to be kept in its original state under the old regulations, and that option isn't there anymore. I don't know if it will ever be a thing, but I was just surprised. But if that's not the point to anybody else, then okay. And one more thing, they decided at their last meeting to have a moratorium on subdivisions until they finish rewriting subdivision regulations.
Well, that's a good idea.
That makes a lot of sense.
We don't have many subdivisions to start with. But,
Yost, when you're watching all these things, has there been any change in P and Z's policies on pervious driveways and roadways?
no.
I mean, there's still no requirement to,
Well, just statement to use low impact development techniques. So,
But
and
it's said it's a nice thing, but there's no effort to make it happen. Is that right?
no, no, there isn't.
The town and the Wetlands Commission and a whole bunch of other people came over to Gear Road the other day and looked at a situation which is water accumulating in strange places. And they seem to think it all comes from development up the mountain. And there's nothing can be done about it because people put in whatever they wanted to put in. And water is ending up filling these great swales. And there seems to be nobody who's responsible.
Well, when there's a building proposal and driveways being put in, they do look at the impact on stormwater runoff, and the stormwater isn't supposed to increase, and or the runoff from the parcel is not supposed to increase. And the town engineer, which is a company that they use, will look at it, but yeah, they may not always get everything.
No, but they
Yeah.
do have a discussion about stormwater runoff with every single development proposal. Inland Wetlands is often also looking at impacts to wetlands when there are changes that impact the wetlands, and they are thinking about stormwater. So it's not, I mean, these discussions do happen all of the time. They're just not specific to a limit on impervious coverage. But in some senses, limits on development to begin with are limits to impervious cover. Because, if you build a building, if you enlarge a building, then you're enlarging the impervious cover.
All right, but there's no way to rectify an error. That's what appears to be. One is stuck with what's happened. I mean, somebody came from Northwest Conservation District, they're specialists, and looked at this and said, well, I don't know what we can do about this.
Ooh.
But when you talk about development, you're including individual houses. You're not talking about big developments, multiple. I
No,
mean,
but like roofs and, you know, the actual physical piece of the structure, that is, I mean, that is really the impervious cover. And when you're building roads and driveways, but I don't know how much of what you're talking about, Wendy, is additions to driveways, or if it's because people are doing renovations on their homes and they're not adequately thinking about the drainage.
Well, I think all those things are true. I just that it seems like we have to move to a moment when we now say everybody has to have rain gutters, whatever they have to have.
I think they do that. It's just not linked to impervious.
But there's no way to go back and correct errors and people
Well,
like
it may also be a problem with maintenance. A lot of people don't maintain things that were originally put in. Like you have these swales in your driveway in a long sloping driveway that take the water sideways. But if they're not maintained, if they clog up, then they don't work anymore. Or if the water erodes
it's
much
things like
and
that. I
gets
mean, I wonder
redirected.
what's the future in planning or in P and Z to force certain behavioral patterns to prevent these things from happening, because nobody's going to roll back old permits, but what do we do? This has been a situation developing over 10 or 15 years, and now finally it's really here and it's really a problem.
Maybe should contact the land use officer and ask if she can look into it and
They've
maybe
looked
notify-
into it and they all sort of throw their hands up. They
Yeah.
know why the problem exists, but they don't know what to do about it. And nobody seems to be responsible. It's not my problem. I want to say that. I
Right.
just happen to be next to the neighbor who is complaining all the time and who really, is finding his driveways washed out. But I don't know what we need to do to take the long view on this.
But ask the owner of the parcel where the water comes from to get an engineer out there to propose correcting the
Well,
problem.
it's never one household. When you have a long hill like Gear Mountain Road, it's a dozen houses. They're all
It's not-
contributing.
In the end, that's not really a P and Z thing, though. In the end, that's a neighbor to neighbor thing. You're talking about a civil complaint. That is not, that is not, I mean, you can design something new to try and prevent things like that from happening, but once it's already done, it's no
Yeah.
longer for P and Z. It's not, because it was made in accordance with the regulations that
Right.
were in effect at that time. So what you're really talking about is a complaint between neighbors.
Yeah.
But I think Wendy-
I'm sorry, guys, but I would love to move us along only
Okay.
because
Okay.
I am on vacation and my entire family is waiting to go to dinner. At a certain point, I will probably pass the Zoom on to somebody else. But if this is something that where it's not an update, it's not something that we're actively looking at, there's very little that we are going to do to incent P and Z to retroactively pull people's permits for things when there's a water issue now. It's an interesting conversation, but I just don't see what we would do about that at the moment.
Agreed.
Okay, so anything more on POCD and P and Z and regs? And Yos, are you going to go to the meeting tomorrow?
Well,
Are you going tomorrow to the meeting?
no, probably not.
Okay, so can we move on to D? And there is no update on that. And E, Green Energy Task Force.
Well, I can only comment that we have now connected with the Council on Governments through the Green Energy Network, and we're trying to work with COGS to combine our information and do a better job on environmental, on energy. And that's a lively conversation that's going on. We had our first meeting on June 2nd. I have great optimism for that.
Keep us posted.
Okay. Great. F is the Housatonic herbicide working group. I have not heard anything new on that front. Anyone else heard anything?
Did
I
Jane have
do have a
anything?
related question. I noticed that, I guess it's town road crew has been running up and down our roads with some kind of very lively herbicide. Do we know what they're doing there?
They're spraying
Sutherland,
knotweed. There's
But
been a huge
that's all?
effort to spray knotweed all over
okay,
Connecticut. I don't know who's doing it, actually.
yeah, it's quite startling to see. I just don't, should we be investigating that? Should we be asking?
Jean, do you know, is the municipality doing it? Or is the state doing it?
I
Not
don't,
limited to Kent.
say that again.
It's not limited to Kent.
Yeah, the only way to understand it is if, I can't imagine that Deep or DOT would be doing anything on a town road and vice versa. So Wendy, are you seeing it on town roads or are you seeing it on South Kent Road?
I'm seeing it on Gear Mountain Road and on Camp Flats Road. I just noticed it. It happened in the last week, I think.
I'll
was
ask Rick, I don't know
Mountain
anything
Road.
about it.
Skiff Mountain Road got sprayed.
Beardsley Road.
It's all over when you start noticing. So it's not limited to state roads at all.
Okay.
But that wouldn't be just for knotweed.
But they're only spraying patches of knotweed.
Jean, can you find out?
But
where
I've
you
seen a
can-
whole
Yep,
roadside
I'm
sprayed.
emailing him right now.
Good.
I think
But,
the
and
Housatonic,
the knotweed, do they spray the whole plant? Because that tends to be not very effective.
Yeah. No, I didn't think of this as knotweed. I thought of this as moving the road edge back for visibility, but I still thought, I wonder if one shouldn't have been aware when this was going on, because
They don't usually spray the road edge. You may be seeing where things got dry, but I did notice that road edges were sprayed for knotweed patches, and they didn't always, sometimes they missed a little bit. So they're doing it from a moving vehicle, so it's not only gonna land on the knotweed. Yos, I agree with you. I don't really think that's super effective. But again, we don't really know who and why. The other thing that perennially gets sprayed is it's a practice that people spray around our drains to keep the weeds down, which is not a huge, that sounds pretty dangerous because that spray is going to go right into our stormwater runoff.
right.
If it rains after they spray, and the spray doesn't stay active for a very long time, but if it rained shortly after they sprayed, it would go into the groundwater. Into the stormwater runoff. Sorry.
It just seems like we ought to have an opinion about this, but we don't know where it came from.
I think folks on the Housatonic River Commission know something about this. I will ask there also.
Is that like Mike? Is it a Tom Zetterstrom thing?
100%, yeah.
Okay, whatever you can find out, that would be great.
So it's not done by highway departments? Or is it? Is it not done by highway
Yes,
departments?
there's a very, very devoted invasive fighter who has been.
Yeah, I know Tom Zetterstrom.
Yeah,
and
he's not doing it on his own. He works
Right.
with highway
and the
departments.
guy from
He's not
Falls
just
Village,
going out and spraying, so he would,
Yeah.
but I
okay.
may be something that he has helped to organize.
Mhm.
We should know more about it, that's all.
email sent. I'll let you all know.
I'll do the same.
Great, thank you. If it doesn't require discussion, we don't have to wait a month. We could just get our answer through email.
Yep.
Okay, and then G, Sustainable CT, any update?
Not really any movement. I have a good line. I've been trying to get some more members because we're down to basically 2 members, and we need a few more members to sort of re-energize the group, but I'm working on 2 people who look promising, and hopefully by next month we'll have a meeting on the books and get back to going towards our bronze certification and ticking off some of these items. And also the COG has a fellow, each COG has a sustainable CT fellow that I think just started in the last week or so. And Jess, once they are sort of have their sea legs around them, Jess Leclerc from Sustainable CT, myself and the fellow are going to have like just a kickoff meeting of how that fellow can help our team get some of this stuff completed.
Jean, could we ever just pay somebody to do it?
Well, I mean, in what way? Just hire like a consultant, or
Yeah,
because there's no money. There's no budget for
but there could be. I mean, how much do you think it would take? Like $3,000? You could pay somebody and they'd just do it in a month or 2. And then you wouldn't have to wait for meetings or minute them. You could just have somebody do it.
Yeah, let me see what the fellow
Share a
can
little
offer,
secret
'cause
and tell
Jeff-
you that I was hired by somebody in New Milford to do a huge part of their sustainable Connecticut. And they paid me. I said,
They
I
probably
couldn't
had
do that in
budget.
Kent, but I could do it in another town. And I did.
They probably had a
Why
budget.
couldn't you do it in Kent? I mean, that's the thing too. Like, I mean,
Okay.
obviously conflicts of interest and all of that, but somebody who's already knowledgeable about these things, somebody on P and Z, somebody on inland wetlands, somebody on Conservation Commission, Glenn Chalder, like anybody who actually knows all of this stuff already, you're just paying them to, to
Quite agree.
aggregate it.
Quite agree, yeah.
Um,
In New Milford, the way they did it was they had a private benefactor who paid me. It was understood, that's all.
And we could even spend some of the Cougar money on it, I would think.
No, I don't think that's too far from the Cougar
Think so?
intention.
We could put it in our budget ask for next year.
In our budget, yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, because if you think about the cost benefit, it's so much more costly to have all of the meetings and the minutes and I don't know. To me, it's worth it.
well,
Yeah.
under the some of the requirements for sustainable CT there, you do have to have at least quarterly meetings. So there does have to be a group that is all headed in the same direction and is sort of driving the
Have
bus.
the consultant report to us or
Report,
any other commission that is appropriate, but like just have the consultant come quarterly and make a report. But I mean, I
Right,
would
but
say hire somebody to get it done on the quick.
Yeah.
sure, but the Board of Selectmen passed a resolution, whatever it was, 2 years ago to create this sustainability team, and we can't just let that fall away. And I did I did bring it to you guys to see if you wanted to take it on underneath the Conservation Commission.
But
So
we didn't,
let me
because
see
it
what
was way too unwieldy for us to do it. And, I mean, this is our conversation now is, I don't think any of us feel any different today than we did, 2 years ago when we started talking about this. But maybe the team could just be the Board of Selectmen and the consultant could report to the Board of Selectmen, and then you wouldn't have to worry about disbanding a committee or getting out of the charge or anything like that. I'm just saying that, like, what didn't seem to work is having people who were brand new to town come to this thing that seemed so amorphous and where they didn't really know who had done what in town already.
Mhm.
Yeah, I even got in touch with several of them and offered my services, not but for fee, but just that I had done a lot of this, and nobody ever got in touch with me. I said, I've been through it all with New Milford.
I mean, I think it's hard. I think it's really unfair to somebody who's brand new to Kent to expect that they would know. You know, so I mean, I think, you know, nothing on the people who, and nothing but actually, you know, appreciation for the people who stepped out to give it a try. But it, you know, it just might not have been the, it could be easier to do it, I think, if you had a consultant.
Let me talk to this fellow, because that's what Jess has been telling me, that this person is gonna do exactly that, do the lifting. And Wendy, I encourage you, you're more than welcome to join the team and be a point person for collecting the data that we need to collect.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to take on another volunteer job. You know, I either would do it
Understood.
on my own and produce much of the information, but be paid, or I would just continue with all my other activities. I think that's the best way.
Yeah, I mean, we offered to the sustainability team to have a joint meeting, to come here, interview us, to talk to Wendy on her own. You know, there were many times where, you know, we attempted to make that connection. But I think that it's unwieldy doing it, you know, in this kind of a town committee structure when you have people
Yeah.
with limited time. But we would have devoted a whole meeting of ours to
Yeah.
having people come and ask us questions about what had been done. That didn't, you know, for whatever reason, that never really hit the mark.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were just trying to untangle I mean, as you know, it's an enormous program, and we were just trying to untangle where to even head out. And then we were having, you know, we had a bunch of folks who came in and out of membership, and
Yeah, I mean, not asking for, you
Very,
know,
very-
explanations, it's done. But I think that we can learn from it, maybe a little
Mhm.
bit.
yeah, let me meet this fellow, and hopefully this will, you know, from what Jess said, it's exactly what this person is being hired to do, is the lifting part.
I think you're hearing, Jean, some willingness on the part of the Conservation Commission to devote a proportion of our unspent budget to hiring a consultant to just do this. So if that is of interest at all, that is what you heard here tonight.
So you have funds in your current budget that you could spend on a consultant? Is that what you're saying?
We have funds that we do not anticipate spending before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, I don't know if I don't know if I could make that happen in 10 days, which is sort of what I have.
Connie, it's like $1,000, give or take.
Yeah, and that could be this year's portion.
Yeah.
Because July 1, we have a budget again. But anyway, I think we should move on. And the last item on our agenda is the wrap up to the legislative session, or that's the last item of old business. I don't think there's anything more after that. But did everyone have a chance to take a look at the, you know, what passed, what didn't? I did include an article from the Connecticut Insider, a little bit on point, as of whenever it was that Carol and I were making the agenda. Connecticut League of Conservation Voters was not out yet with its scorecard, or, you know, with its wrap up of the session. I don't know if you want to talk about any of them or not. Last year, I remember it was really kind of fun to have Maria Horn come here and give us the kind of the inside play-by-play. Maybe we could do that in July if you're interested. And then we'll
I was
start.
frankly puzzled by some of the things that failed. I understood all the things that survived, but you know, I wasn't there to hear the inner workings of why some of those seemingly very good ideas.
If
There were
Maria
so
came to
many, I
July
think the
meeting, could
volume was part of the problem. There were
Yeah.
so, at one point I was tracking like 130 bills. I can't even imagine what the legislators have had to deal with. This was like one of the biggest bill introduction long sessions in a very, very long time.
could Maria come to our July meeting? That would be great.
We can ask. We have a connection. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it was probably too new to have for this meeting.
Yes.
But if you want, I can ask if she could be there.
Would other people like it? I would like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It certainly shows that there is interest in more green concerns and more conservation, but maybe the bills are not well thought through. I don't know, but
I think that Wendy, generally, it almost needs to be on, like, you know, for several years in a row before something will move forward. So it was great to finally have EPR for tires move.
Yes.
That has been proposed for several years running. So if they're important, they're going to come back around and we'll get another shot. And yeah.
And did any important bills get incorporated in the budget? So that they maybe not passed.
Like the
individually?
bonding did. The bonding went into the budget.
Mhm.
Connie, before you close out, I do have something to say about Cricket Valley very quickly.
We did not amend the agenda.
Oh, okay, so I don't need to. It just, I got a memo today, that's
We'll
all.
know more next month, Wendy.
Okay, I'll be in Maine, but I may plug in.
If it's a memo, maybe it's
I could
correspondence.
just forward it to all of you. Yeah, it's a report on what's happened.
If we're not discussing it, it could just be correspondence and you
Okay.
can
All right,
forward
you'll
it.
see a memo from Blake Levitt. I'll
Okay.
forward it.
Okay. All right. I don't think that there is anything more.
Motion to adjourn.
Good. Have a good dinner.
So wait, let me just be clear. So Wendy is gonna send the memo because it came in as correspondence and she's just gonna send it to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we can put it on the agenda for next month if there's something to discuss.
I don't think there's anything, no, it's kind of a,
It's correspondence.
Self-explanatory.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so Wendy, you can just circulate that and then we can all read it and know.
okay, yeah, that's all.
Okay. All right. So we have Liddy's motion on the table to adjourn at 8:15. And would anyone like to second?
I
Liddy
will.
wants to
Oh, I was
second her motion. I'm putting Wendy. And I'm assuming we're all in favor. And thank you
Yes.
very much. Have a great night.
Good night. Have a
Enjoy
great
the
vacation,
dinner.
Connie.
Good night
Enjoy.
all. Night all.
Nice.
Hi.